All right, guys, welcome into episode 44 of Coffee and Chel. We got a big one as we've got some more news about NHL 23 that we are going to jump into. I'm Sleeves, joined by my two co-hosts, Kesso and Padre. And as we start every episode, let's get a little sense of how the boys are doing. Kesso, we'll start with you. You're now a week in to being a father, so how's it going?
I'm exhausted, man. I was up till 2 a.m. The baby had the hiccups, which, dude, it takes forever to go away sometimes.
Really?
And then this whole weekend, I had like this immersion negotiation like workshop to go to, which was really fun, surprisingly. So last Hut episode, we had like 3,000 people listen, I think.
Yeah.
If anybody's interested in getting into like sales or any job where you'd have to negotiate, first book, I'd recommend Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It was like this FBI terrorist negotiator guy.
I've heard of him.
And
he has a TED Talk.
Yeah, does he? Okay, I'll have to watch that then.
Or a master class, whatever they're called.
Yeah, he has a master class, I think.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things is like what applied in those like terrorist negotiations. How do they apply in business class? That basically and do a couple of different case studies and like negotiate with each other. So applying some of those tactics. So I feel like I learned a lot. So it's pretty fun.
That's awesome, dude. Padre, what about you? How you been this weekend?
Good. Pretty busy. We had a birthday party for my daughter this weekend. Not for her, but for her friend. So we were over there today. Yeah, so we just kind of hung around, got some yard work done. Nothing crazy, just typical dad life now.
Bro. I was at a wedding.
That's like the ultimate dad weekend right there.
I was at a wedding. I'm almost done 75 hard. This was the hardest weekend. My wife was in the wedding, and so I had to like roam by myself. Really, no, I stayed sober. It was the hardest day of these 63 days that I've done it. But we got through it. I got both my workouts in somehow. We were there the whole weekend. I had to get up at like 7 a.m. when everyone else was sleeping. It was a mess. But nonetheless, we powered through. And but that's enough of that. All right. We have big NHL 23 news to talk about as EA, I believe on Thursday, or Friday. It was Friday, I think. Released a screenshot of the team builder cards the Eastern Conference team builder cards that we will get to choose from in the pre-order pack. If anyone is watching this on release date of this video or the podcast, you have until the 16th at midnight. So like the 15th, you want to have this done by because if you pre-order that in time by the 15th. You get to choose two of these 84 overall team builders that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But they gave us the Eastern Conference one. I can only assume Monday. We're going to post this on Tuesday. We'll get the Western Conference one. But we're going to go over the Eastern Conference ones and give our thoughts on it. You know, we got some info right off the top. For anyone that hasn't seen it, I'll throw it up here. But right off the top, 84 overalls. So these started at 85. These are the cards that you had to collect like a certain amount of each team, and then you would get the team's representative like you did this year. I would assume it's going to stay roughly the same, but they started at 85. So we've got confirmed lower overalls. So we've talked about this before, Casto. I don't know if that really helps that much. I think a build system still helps progression far more than doing this and lowering overalls would. But give me your thoughts so far on what you think of if lowering the overalls will really help.
It's going to help a little bit. It's going to delay that progression creep, I think. If it delays it, it'll be delaying it by a month, right? So if we, instead of having 99s in April, maybe it's May. Does that increase the life cycle for some of the more hardcore players? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think so. I still think me and Padre, once we get bounced from GWC, we're likely leaving the game for the summer. So it's not where I want it to be if they do lower it, but I guess it's a step in the right direction.
No, absolutely. Now, Padre, early on, you were someone who's stingy with your coins and terrified to make a lineup decision because you'll be in my text messages every night being like, "Yo, should I get this guy?" Would you like giving the list? We'll take a look at some of them because there's actually some of the overalls, the 84 overalls. Some of the cards actually have 84s in NHL 22, so we can get a glimpse of these when. Early on in NHL 22, did you do any of the team builders? If so, which ones? And do you plan on doing these again, knowing how the progression went this year?
what were the ones in this year in the beginning of the year? I couldn't remember who they were.
Foot was it, bro. He was
okay, yeah. So Foot, I got Foot. It just took me a little time to get Foot compared to some people. You know what I mean?
Did you?
I don't think you spent like 500 or 1,000.
Yeah,
like
we did. Kesso, dude, do you remember when? Because we got the game early. That's like one of the only perks of being a game changer. We got the game early, and me and Kesso, because there was no 10-hour window for game changers, dude, we grinded the market to try and get all like 490s. Like, we spent money. Like, it was the only way to do it because there was no way to get enough coins. That's the problem early on, is that, like, these cards will be cheaper, but, like, you have no coins, and there's no real ways to acquire them. So, I think early on, we haven't seen what the 90s will be, right? These are just the 84s. But I'm trying to think back, as I don't know if you remember, what 85s, how many were really usable? Like,
they were all bad. Like, I think
James Neal was... Oh, no, he ended up being bad, but I remember him...
He was the Vegas one, right?
Yeah, he was the Vegas one. And
Blues was Bacchus, I remember that.
Yeah.
Padre, you used one or two of them, I think, and you liked somebody.
I can't remember. It was so long ago now, but...
I don't know if it'll matter, because I think that we would just trade these in right away. Like, you know what I mean?
Don't forget, you guys got top 2 in squad battles last year, too.
Oh, dude, the squad battle hack. That was...
I'm hoping to repeat my championship run.
I've learned my lesson that if I get the game, whatever, it's going right into squad battles.
You guys are going to be battling like 1 and 2.
Just keep refreshing back and forth. No,
Yeah.
so so I in terms of the overall in the 84s, is we lost Kesso's camera. There we go. I think he's back.
There we go.
All right. Kesso has a new camera, by the way, so anyone in the comment section that's watching the video, how much better does he look now? I think it's great. But
it keeps timing out a little bit after, I don't know, I got to figure something out.
Yeah, we'll deal with it. But I think it looks good. The 84, I think the progression in terms of just the overall, I don't know how much it'll help. I think I don't want to say it's a lazy way, but I guess in terms of their ability to change anything, this is probably the only thing that could help with progression, because we've talked about HUT in terms of Hockey Ultimate Team. It's like one of the only Ultimate Team modes where it's just really, really rough in terms of progression. The game changes so drastically compared to other games. Like MLB can still survive. Like, at 99, you can either hit a curveball and lay off a changeup in the dirt, or you can't in MLB. In hockey, when speed goes up to 90 in the high 90s, the entire game does not feel like it is at launch. So I'll be curious to see. Go ahead.
I'll be honest with you, too. With these, I wish they would even go lower. Because if you think about some of these guys that are in this list, these guys are 3rd and 4th line players, some of them, and they're also 2nd and 3rd pair defensemen. So if you think about it, like, I'm trying to think last year, let's just use Patrick Kane. I think he was an 86. I think in the beginning.
Yeah, it was close. I think it was 86.
I think his gold card was an 86. Patrick Kane from an 86, so let's just say like Tomas Plekanec.
Yep.
Like a 2 overall difference? No. That guy's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
But I'm saying his base card, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm hoping is like but I get they're trying to entice you to want to do it at the same time, so it's kind of tough. But that's where we'll talk about it in a few minutes. Maybe having some sexier names that are more recent.
I agree.
Maybe relevant.
Sure.
Okay. That's kind of my thing.
Yeah, I agree on that for sure. I think the one thing that needs to be brought up is that the team builders that they're using, like with the list, we'll talk about the names in a second, but like even just the overalls, because we know what'll happen with like the alumni guys are so slow, and maybe they've taken that into account. Maybe they've realized that the content team seems to be a little bit more hip to this kind of stuff now in terms of gameplay, with Hawk and Moose now being the content guys. It's like they're being made and they're just whatever, because you know they're going to turn them into 90s. But not everyone is going to be able to, make enough to get a 90 overall. This helps for sure, the pre-order bonus. But it'd be way better if these were usable. And then if you cash them in, they're already untradeable. You got to keep them. But maybe, and at the launch of the game, everyone would just have an entire team of team builders. But who's to say? Let's talk about some of the choices. All right. So, I mean... I get it's the lowest rung of team builders, so I have hope, because the one thing that when it comes to the content for EA is the MSPs and some of the cards that are chosen are often ones that aren't as popular overall, because they'll get their cards eventually. We say this about like McDavid and Matthews for the most part. Usually they don't receive a lot of MSPs or special cards because they're going to get prime times in Team of the Weeks, and they'll just go up automatically. So they highlight guys like Eric Brandstrom, which we have to bring up Eric Brandstrom every single episode. So I think these team builders are awfully like that as well. Like, out of this list that you see, Kesso, do you think any of them... Actually, let me ask you this first. Kesso, we'll start with you. What do you think a team builder should represent? Give me the type of card that you would want to see as a team builder.
For this level of team builder, right? The first one. Yeah.
Even just in general. Even just in general, when you think team builder.
It should start fan favorite to icon in the franchise.
Okay.
The final one should be a Hall of Famer, like primarily played their career with that team.
Maybe
they're known for that. Yeah, right. So like if you have a Mike Modano, right, it's not going to be a Red Wing one. It's going to be the Dallas Stars. So that's sort of I think.
What about
fan favorite?
What about you, Padre? What do you
like
think?
Retired last?
What do you think about in terms of team builders? Like, what do you think?
I'm kind of on the same page with Kesso on that. I kind of feel like it should be, and this is something you could do to maybe get the community involved. If you're going to do fan favorite, maybe have a vote for four different, and you could do an era of, let's say, the 2000s, early 2000s, 90s, I don't know, something like, just something to get the community involved and maybe get them excited in the beginning of the year. Like, we've done fan votes before for team of the years, so why not do something like that for this?
I was thinking about this for the lowest rung. I think when it comes to what I think a team builder is, I think you guys nailed it. Like, guys that were like that had a team built around them or were just mainstays. But at launch of the game specifically, because you know that these guys, a lot of them are going to get other icon cards throughout. What about, because it's the very launch of the game, like rookies? Because they have such low cards going in, and it would give them like exciting, usable cards early on. If like the Detroit Red Wings was, an 84 Moritz side, or if he wasn't an 84, I guess you'd have to. But maybe these guys have extra synergy slots or maybe zone abilities, that kind of thing. Like, that might be an alternative, too. Like, I think that seeing rookies would be pretty cool. Out of this list, though, Padre, we'll start with you. Do you think any of these represent a team builder for their team?
So, we're doing the Atlantic Division, I take it?
Yeah, we'll start with the Atlantic, yeah.
I think, like, Wade Redden for the Senators is the best one from the Atlantic.
Yeah.
From my standpoint. I just feel like, he was a stud back in the day for the Senators. A lot of people forget that. And just because he kind of at the end of his career with the Rangers fell apart and ended up in the AHL. But
dude, that
I would say
the Rangers in the AHL, dude. Like, dude, I remember that there's a guy that had a jersey that was like 6'5" and like broke like this whole contract in there.
Well, and then the funny thing is he ended up playing for the Blues after that. He actually played pretty good for us. It was kind of funny. So I just wish it was somebody like, more of like a fan favorite, like we were saying. I don't know, or like rookies. We've also talked about, I don't know if there's a way maybe ever to do. We've talked about the evolution players. I don't know if there's ever a way where we could do something involving the Evos possibly in the beginning of the year too. Like, that would be cool.
Yeah, just for the trade-ins. Like
yeah.
I think that like Thomas Plekanec, I don't mind for the Canadians, just because like during his era he was kind of like
turtleneck.
Yeah, the turtleneck. Yeah, like, but during that era, he was like a mainstay right after Koivu was done.
Yeah.
But I mean, Saku Koivu that would have been a team builder. Like, in my opinion, that would have been a much better one. But yeah, some of these choices, like, I don't think Anton Strawman is a Lightning.
No, I don't either. I think of him more as
I'm tripping. Canuck.
No, he played for the Leafs. He spent some time with the Jackets, and then he went to the Bolts. No, he never was. I don't think he ever was a Canuck. Here's one thing though. Hypothetically speaking, if they did something with like Evo cards for the very first one, what if they made it a thing where you either have to trade it in or you can kind of hold on to it and gamble?
Okay.
So, you know what I mean? Like, you got to roll the dice, or you have to, just make you think a little bit, not just. I don't know. I'm just thinking of something like fun like that. But I mean, like the Leafs, like a lot of kids play this game. Not a lot of old guys play this game like us. So I don't even know how many kids know who Wade Redden is. And that's sad. That's scary to me, right? Yeah. So Meehan from the Sabres and Dave Keon, who obviously Leafs fans know, he's like a legend.
Yeah.
It's, you kind of need somebody different, I think, than those kind of guys. And Kyle Quincy was a Band-Aid for the Red Wings for the most part. I mean,
like Kyle Quincy, man, like he made it in here. That one's pretty incredible. Even Chuck Kobasu, Okay, maybe I'm tripping on this one too, but I think of Kobasu as a flame.
A flame. Yeah,
okay, we're on the same page here. All right, I think 100% think of him as a flame. Yeah. Moving on to the Metro, I don't believe Scott Hartnell was in the game, so I think
Is he a new addition then?
He might be a new addition to the. Like, obviously, he recently retired. But I don't believe he was in the game last year. So like I think that's a nice cool that they put him in the game. But I think Hartnell as a flyer isn't terrible. Ruth Salainen, I don't know. Like I don't think I don't at all think of him. Chris Clark for the Capitals. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a Capitals fan. I actually remember him ever.
You know what's weird about that? He was on the team prime of the Ovi Crosby rivalry.
Was he?
I believe so.
Yeah, he was.
Correct? Yeah. I don't remember him either.
I don't.
He actually had a few good seasons for them where he potted 20 and 30 goals, and then from then on it was just downhill. He never scored more than 10 goals after that.
Okay.
For the Caps, and he was more of just kind of a fourth line, third line grinder type thing after that. But I agree. Yeah.
Maybe I'll say this because last year when the team builders went along, right, and the 90s for the most part were kind of I agree with Adam Foote as an Avalanche team builder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Danfus was the Sharks. He was my first favorite Shark. He was still on the team my very first.
That's
season.
A cool one for you.
It was cool, but I don't know how much of it.
Kesso, what do you think about Yuri Slager for the Penguins? You being a Pens fan.
So Yuri Slager was top pairing defenseman whenever I first got into hockey, right?
Right.
He was always the scapegoat on it. He wasn't good. Those were the years where amazing offense, really bad defense. That's just because how they were built, right? I think he would be way better here, especially just capitalizing on the Chicklets podcast. He's super popular right now. Have him in there as an 84 for a team builder, right? Even that
would be cool. That'd be cool.
There's some other players, but Yuri Slager was a real weird one for me to see.
That one's Danico. I don't mind. I think Danico for the Devils isn't bad.
That's another one though. I think where it's he played in the 80s and 90s. I don't think. I think he fits that description, but I don't think a lot of the younger people would remember.
It looks like I said, I think putting rookies in, I don't think you could do it later on for team builders. I think that's why as an 84 would work so well because they're just 84s and a lot of the younger guys either if they get a base gold card, it's not going to be that high. Maybe Sider, but you could go with Raymond. I don't think Raymond will be an 84 this year. RJ Umberger for the Blue Jackets. I don't mind that one, but again, he wasn't. It was. Maybe Rick Nash will be the 89, assuming that they go up by 5 again. But I hope the one thing I do hope is that as it went along this year, the team builders when they got to a 98, Parayko, it didn't make any sense. Those ones were so. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Those were for fun. It seemed the way they were doing it. You know what I mean? So then the kids that were playing the game after GWC could just run around and crush people with Colton.
Exactly. Yeah.
My thing, I don't know. It's hard to know too, who they have access to for alumni and icons. True. So it's we could be oh, we could have this guy, that guy. The problem is you don't really know who they actually have the rights to. That's the one thing.
That's another thing for sure. Sillinger, I remember trading for him all the time in GM mode because he was always traded in real life. I'm almost positive he has the NHL record for most teams played for.
That's my favorite one because so far I don't know the other team because
we don't
I think he'll be if he's a beast on the faceoff dot like he should be, then that will be my favorite one.
Yeah, out of these ones, so let's. I did pull up. There is an 84 RJ Umberger, so we can kind of get a sense of what they'll look like. Speed for RJ Umberger at 84 overall is 84, acceleration 83, and agility 84. So the one thing I'll say about these 84s is I want them to be a little usable because if they're just set fodder. I hate that precedent that everything is just you pull a card and it's okay, it can go into sets to turn into collectibles, whatever. I would love just more being excited to use that individual card, and maybe some people will offline players that are hyped to pull guys for your favorite teams and whatnot. But usually I'll say this about team builders so far, the defensemen have been the valuable ones, because early on in the year, Kessler, I mean, we talked about last year, like Adam Foote was, if you do like favorite cards throughout NHL 22, based on the time frame when you got them, obviously not, and the value they returned, like Foote was one of the best all year long.
Foote was the best defenseman like at his time, right?
It was like a 3-month thing. Like he was still on my team, I think, at the end of December. Like, so
he was so much faster than like most.
That's the thing. So defensemen at the beginning of the year, because they have to knock down something to make up for the fact that they have high defensive stats. Like speed, shot, and then like the defensive stats, it's very rare early on in NHL and HUT, right? Like for the overalls for defensemen. So finding one that has that all is like super good. I'm just curious if like I hope they raise the speed on these guys a little bit, not just team builders, but like the old icons, man. Like they're so hard to use early on, right?
Dude, yeah, because every single year I want to use Brett Hall. Unusable.
A week, you can use him in a
like,
week, the first week, basically.
For a week, yeah, because he has like 82 speed.
But his shot goes in from anywhere.
Yeah.
But you're not
and then there's always the random ones.
Yeah.
There's a lot that will have like 95 acceleration and like 87 speed, or like vice versa.
Yeah. No, I agree. All right, let's do let's pick a couple. If we were to pick our own, Padre, pick a team and then give me a team builder that you think would work for the 84. So, like, these ones, obviously, I think we have to keep in mind that, like, maybe they have the big guys saved for the 89s and the 93s or however far they go. So, give me a good 84 that you think would be a better selection for one of these teams.
So, I'm going to take out, just because we're talking about Yuri Slager, I'm going to take him out. And I think a better Penguin, maybe Kessler, you'll tell me I'm wrong, would be, like, Darius Kasparaitis.
So he'd be a great one, or even like a Pascal Dupuis.
I was about to say Dupuis.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot. Like I Padre. Because I was trying to replace. You're saying Kasparaitis would be a great one.
Kessa was bee-booping for me, so sorry if the audio is a little messed up. It's bee-booping. It's all right. Say it again, dude.
Oh, I was just saying. Originally, I was just going defenseman for defenseman, like Padre did.
Yeah.
And thinking, But, you guys go ahead. I don't know why.
I think Dupuis would be a really good one because he was still integral during those that cup run and was a really big part of that team.
I actually went back and like looked at the team builders because I forgot which ones they were in the beginning of the year last year, and I did Kessler first because we all thought Kessler was gonna be sick and I remember Kessler was the one guy that told me, he's like, bro, I think Kessler's broken because he was still in the game, but he was so low because of his injuries with the Ducks. And I really do believe you guys were onto something when you guys were like, I think he's low because his card stinks, his base card. I remember being so disappointed because it took me so long to get Kessler.
Yep.
And I'm like, you got to be freaking kidding me. I do all this work to get Kessler, and this is what I get?
He was one of the all-time worst value cards. I think him and Yager, the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
It was like they were pulling their silver cards or something.
Mm-hmm. It was, literally.
And then Bedard later on in the year, too. So it was
Jalmerson, I remember Jalmerson was one of the 85s last year I liked. Yeah, I liked Jalmerson. I think even Nick Schultz was like kind of quick.
Mm-hmm.
Dubinsky had good draws. I'm like looking at a few of the guys on the list now from last year that I remember being. And that Michael Pavanka was good for the Caps.
Oh yeah, Pavanka was random. Like I had because I do like the thing where I spent a lot of money early on at the beginning of the year. Like I didn't have any of them on my team basically because I was just trading them in for the 90s. But I remember Neal specifically, unless I'm thinking of 21. No, it was 22. James Neal was the Vegas one, correct?
Yeah, he was Vegas one.
He looked good, was awful for me. I remember him being like my first card that like I didn't like because I didn't get Kessler because I took Danfus. But even though I was like Kessler looks like the better card, there was something wrong with that card. Like I don't care what they say. Like he was.
Oh, for sure.
That was the silver card with the card art on there because the most noticeable thing is when a player can't catch passes, that's their offensive awareness. Like at anything over like 80 offensive awareness, like you should never see a bobble of a puck. And
I just think
it was bad.
I think it's funny when you got to like 21 and you have Taze, Iginla, and Housley, and then this year
random.
You got Parayko, Bukestad, and Stu Grimson.
That is funny. They went so weird on that.
Like just what a difference.
Kazo, pick one and then give us like a different choice that you pick.
Florida Panthers. I'm gonna go Olli Jokinen.
Yes, I think that's a good one. I think that's a really, really good one. For sure. I'm gonna go with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I think Dave Keon is actually low-key one of the better that made sense for this. Like, what about if you didn't want to do Doug Gilmour, but like Steve Thomas, like from that, like I feel like that era of like Leafs never gets any attention.
What about the Islanders, like Jason Blake?
Yeah, dude, 40 goal scorer, Jason Blake. Yeah, dude, 100%.
Like just something, I don't know. I just thinking of like our childhood.
Yeah, dude. Oh, man, I feel like that could go on forever. The Sean Hill one for Carolina, that one too. Is there a goaltender in these? I don't think they put
There's
a goalie
not.
in. Yeah.
They never do, I don't think, either.
Which is funny because like that means they know. Like they know we won't use them. It's like,
Right.
they're like, okay, yeah, we just won't even throw it in. So, all right, well that's enough. I mean, we did a long talk on these. We'll see what the Western Conference ones has. And again, we'll touch on the card art. I actually don't mind the card art. I hate the headshots, but I don't know if they'll ever be able to go to something more than that. One thing I will say, I would love it if these 90 and aboves had master set card art. I think that would be so huge. Because they're so hard to get. They're so expensive.
They kept the same card art throughout.
Yeah. They didn't give masters at all throughout. So like I hope that we see like an improvement in that for sure. All right, guys, let's move on to we'll talk about some esports. Again, we're waiting for more news for NHL 23. Let's talk about some esports. Our couple guys in the community, myself included, Saphir put together like a ranking system, I guess, of NHL competitive players as we get into the beginning of NHL 23. And I think this is always interesting for the community because everyone loves to argue, but it also gives you a sense of like where they are in the landscape. So there's 5 people that came up with a list of 15 guys, and we all ranked them 1 to 15, and then they got a point value depending on where they were. So like first got 15 points essentially. So we can talk about those rankings overall. I'll read them real quick, and then we'll touch on them. So this is the combined group, not my own, but the combined group's rankings was number 15 was Josh Fearless, and again we'll touch on all of these in a little bit. Kesso was 14. Nip and Biscuits was 13. That's a tough one. Sap Alien at 12. Own the Blue at number 11, Duncan Demon at 10, Canadians at 9, Junior Pens at 8, Saphir at 7, Uninstall at 6, Geimer at 5, Jose at 4, Polgs at 3, Gren at 2, and Regs at 1. So after, the first like 6 or 7, we got basically the GWC guys. And I think that something that we need to remember, at least when I was doing this, is like power rankings take a lot of recency bias in, right? So it's not the 15 in a row that I would bet on if I had to like bet in between two. So let's start Padre. Give me the one that stands out that you think is way off, or that you would change.
I would say Josh at 15, just because he got banned, and I understand that's why he's 15.
Yeah, that's why he's 15. Yeah,
and I've said this for years, honestly, or not for years. I said this all last year. The top 4 are the top 4, and then the rest are a conjumbled mess. Like, it could be anybody. And from 5 to 15 for me. I can see anybody beating anybody. It's really hard for me to be like, oh, like Duncan Demon's number 10 when I could easily see Kesso beat Duncan Demon in a series. So you know what I'm saying? It's not I don't think there's a huge like gap between each of those really. It is tough because there's not a lot of tournaments. There's the tournaments that they have had recently have been really, I don't want to say bad formats, but they've been really long, like on Saturdays.
Long, yeah.
And at the wrong time of the year, kind of when it's kind of dead. But I will say if I had to add somebody to the rankings, I don't know if you want to hear that, but
sure, add
somebody to the rankings. I would say AK11, and I did see him. I told you this when me and you were talking on the phone a few days ago about this, and I said I think AK. I don't know where he'd fit in the top 15. I think all those guys are good players, but AK I feel like gets severely underappreciated because he's out on the West Coast, right? But I saw him play Gren a few times this year and a few other players in that Tampa tournament and beat them and really give them a run for their money. And he's really underrated. I don't think he gets a lot of attention because he hasn't done anything in a tournament per se to like win one or whatever. But he's a good player. I think that could belong in there. But there's so many good players that could belong in there. Honestly,
I agree with that for sure. I think that I'm not gonna lie. There used to be. Going into this year, for example, it was like Regs, Gren, Polgs at the end of last year, and then like Josh was like the 4, and then there was like kind of a gap, and then like I agree with you, like in a best of 3, like it's like these bunch of guys that could beat each other, but then there was a 4. I honestly think Regs is 1 and that he's an island. I don't know if Kessel, you agree, but I think
am I still bee booping?
Right now you're good. I'll let you know. Don't worry about it. Just
okay, cool. Yeah, so let me add in a couple things here. I don't think I should be on this list. I didn't even play in any tournaments besides GWC this year.
I think I should be on this list.
Yeah, someone's got to be from here.
I know, right? Like, I mean, I think I'm definitely I could beat a few of the people ahead of me, but I don't think I should be on this list. I get why Josh was so low. Obviously, he's better than most people on here, but if you can't play in anything, what is there to rank?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the thought process there.
I don't know about Nippin's placement. I don't know if it's too high or what, just because I think he's Pumpkin's probably too high. I think Sap is way too low. If we go back to GWC, he barely lost to Jose in like a 50-50 series.
He had him.
And I'm still like, Geimer impressed me against Gren. No doubt about it. I think there's 5 to 10 people from the community that if they had the same route/bracket, that they would be in that 5 spot
for GWC.
Yeah, just in general, right? Like it's always just based on bracket. Overall, it's pretty accurate.
Do you agree with like the regs on an island by himself now? Gren's like in the next.
Yeah, it's not close. Like Regs he's the best.
I'll say this: I think Regs is in the bracket by himself, and then it's Gren and Polgs, and then there's another like tier jump, like break kind of thing.
I don't agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah,
I would say next tier is.
I would say it's Regs, then Gren. Right? They can be in their own 1 and 2.
Oh, you would
like
have
Regs I would have Regs in his own. I would have Gren below in his own, and then I have the next one as a jumbled mess because I think Cad is probably as good or better than anybody else.
He just didn't play a lot of 1v1 this year.
Yeah, and I think too with weaker competition. Yeah. I think he's a great player.
I think Cad.
I don't know.
I think with Cad, I don't understand this, Cad, and you're going to listen to this, Cad. You need to play the game when people are playing the game. Yeah. So when you're cleaning up the Gamer Saloon chat box on July to August every year, and you're going like 100-0 and making plenty of like money, why aren't you doing this when the game is relevant? Because everything every year I hear this. Oh, Cad doesn't have a HUT team. He didn't play HUT. Oh, Cad doesn't. But he's on the game. He's playing 6s. He's playing 3s. He's doing other things. Cad, get off Gamer Saloon in July and whatever and put it towards, the meaningful time. Because I always said Cad has the ability, to... I mean, I don't know. I always thought he could go a lot further than, most people realize.
It's funny because, like, every year that I've been covering GWC and, like, NHL Esports as a whole... And for anyone that doesn't know these guys, like, pay attention. I think even if you're not interested in NHL esports, it's fun if you like match up with them. Like I think it's good to shine a light on NHL esports because I honestly think this year will be the best NHL esports that we'll get maybe ever, but at least the best that we are going to have up to this point. But it's always fun because I remember when Polgs, I used to play him all the time, and I'd actually be able to take a game off him. Like this is like NHL 19. Like, and then you see like these kids that just like ascend, right? So like it was Canadians in like NHL 20, and then like 21 was Polgs, 22. I'll say this about Geimer. So I just did the Xbox event. Xbox and Honda did an event, and Geimer was in the Final Four, and he played Gren, and he beat him, like beat him. Where I was like, and again, like I don't think Gren. I think Gren was either burnt out and hadn't played since GWC because it was like the worst I've seen Gren play. But I was just like, if that's in the cards, then you have to like include him in like the next tier of like those guys. I think he's one this year that has definitely improved the most, and I think it's like confidence. This is gonna sound weird though. Early on, like when guys you get their first big spotlight in GWC or NHL events, this is what I've seen over the last like 4 years. They're great in their own home, but then when the spotlight's on them, they can't close out games. You'll see like the pizza up the middle because they get nervous, that kind of thing. And I think the only way that you can fix that is just experience playing giant games. And I think that you do it enough. Like Same thing with like Gren, right? Like Gren and Regs have played for the most amount of money of anyone that there is. In fact, they've done it 3 straight years at GWC. They have literally been the finalists of North America last, which is a feat in itself. That's incredible. So like, I feel like they don't get nervous. I'm sure they do, but they don't feel it. It doesn't impact their game. And I feel like every year there's a kid who just like is slowly making it, and then like the next year he's like phenomenal. I'd love to hear this. Give me someone. Let's pretend there's no bans or anything like that involved. Would be the next, if Geimer is like the next one that kind of goes from Hut Hero to like esports, like good, really good player. Who do you think is like the next one?
Own the Blue could win next year if he plays.
I agree.
He probably could have won this year.
I agree.
Yeah. So he's mine. I think he's right in that. He could be in that Gren tier. He could be in that Regs tier.
He gets in his own. He gets in his own head.
I think so. But again, I think that comes with like experience. Like I think that like
exactly.
Yeah, I do. Seabruins. Like Ludmer's brother is gonna be gross this year, and like this is gonna sound like dumb too because like I'm not on the level of these guys, but like I play them every once in a while just in like Hut Champs or Rivals, and like I can tell the way someone plays like if they're gonna be nasty at the, you know what I mean? Like if they have a good shot, like I can tell if someone beats me 5-0. Anyone can beat me 5-0, but like the way that they do it, like I can tell like, oh my god, okay, this give it. Seabruins is. Like he is going to be very, very, very good. Own the Blue, I'm curious too. If like the bans and everything, like we'll see what happens. If he's allowed to play. Outside of that, I think that Duncan Demon too. Like I think he's already
I agree with that too.
Better
Deli.
players.
Well, now he's going by Duncan Deli because me and you have hammered that nickname into the ground, and now I go, why don't you work at Wawa?
Yeah,
you're making the cold cuts. So I go lean into it a little bit, and he's like, okay, I'll change my name to Duncan Deli. And he's one of those guys. I don't know. There needs to be like an adjective to describe this. It's these kids that can play 20 games in a row, and their first game is just like their 20th game, and it doesn't phase them. And it's not because I've never been like this. Even when I played like more and I was younger, I would just get bored after like 7 or 8 games. It just gets like boring. I get like burnout. And some of these guys have like some glitch in their brain where they're just sweaty no matter what, from 1 to 20 in a champs run. And Demon is that way. He's like, I just finished 20 champs games. Like Josh Freelish, for example. I'll go play 20 more. You know what I mean? It's
crazy,
like, what?
Dude.
It's crazy.
It is wild. All right, let's. You're way too early. NHL 23 GWC champion. Regs of the field.
I'm gonna go Polgs.
Dude, the way it's funny because like. Polgs had he had a lot. He dominated. Remember NHL 19. Regs won everything, but he didn't qualify for GWC. He lost that like just insane game to qualify for NHL for the GWC. But he had won everything. This year, like Polgs did that. He won everything, but then he got the GWC, played Gren, and he got whooped.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if maybe that experience, like we just talked about, like, Kessa, what do you think? As long as you don't boo, I'll let you know.
Right. I got the field. If I had to go with one of these people, it's so hard because it's like it's always Gren and Regs. It's so hard.
I hope it's not. As someone who's been involved in GWC, I love the story, but they've played 3 straight finals. I want to see. I
want to see somebody different too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm picking Own the Blue. That's who I'm picking.
I'm picking whoever's taking a gap year. So if Polgs is taking another one, I go Polgs because I love Polgsy. He played the biggies all year. He texted me the other day and he's like, I'm gonna grind more this year. I'm like, more? I'm like, I thought you grinded more than ever last year. I'm like, is it even possible? And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna play more. I'm like, oh Lord, Polgs.
All right. We have a lot of guys that are listening that probably have no idea about NHL esports. So I want to transition to something. If you wanted, let's say you took a gap year. Don't do that, by the way, viewers and listeners. Do not take a gap, unless you truly don't know what you want to do, but don't do it for NHL. If you were to be like, hey, I'm going to give it a shot to try and compete in NHL tournaments, what do you immediately start doing? Kessa, you've been in the GWC the last 2 years, so what would you tell people that they need to start doing to give themselves the best shot?
Start watching my channel, yours, tips. Start watching Gren and Reg stream, and go on gamersaloon.com, deposit $500, play Gren and Regs and Duncan Demon for $10 a game, expect to lose all $500, and then all of a sudden you'll be a top 100 player. It's guaranteed.
It's funny how we talk about that. So like Saloon is the site if you are looking to try, if you are very good at the game and you want to test yourself against the best people in the world that are playing for money. I mean, Padre and Kesso, Kesso literally paid for his college through it in the early 2000s. Or the mid 2000s, and Padre, you've lived on it too.
Early.
Yeah, it's kind of like early. But yeah, like it's funny how like that's the thing, because like I think if you play Hut Champs and you go just by Hut Champs, you're never going to make that jump. Like if you can get top 20 in Hut Champs, let's say, right? Obviously you're a great player. There's no denying that. Like if you are a very, very good NHL player if you can get top 20 in Champs. But there's a big gap between Hut Champs and going on a run in GWC. And it's funny, money games is like the common denominator. Like when you talk to everyone, like that seems to be like it. And do you think that it's just the pressure and the fact you're playing great players, like you'll just elevate your game? Like Padre, do you think that's it?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think it's just playing with your own money and you could lose it. I'll say this, Kesso, maybe you would disagree or agree or disagree with me on this. I think where I had like my best, I don't know, like time of becoming like a better player was back when they had that college tournament on Virgin Gaming back in the day. And I know you played it real heavily. And it was kind of like Leafs Gaming in the sense where you weren't really playing for money, but you were at the end, where you were playing a leaderboard, but every game was free at that time, but you had to keep playing games to like finish higher on a leaderboard. Yep. And by just doing that, you were just grinding and grinding and grinding. And then you were playing games where I feel like some of the turnoff with Gamer Saloon is, let's say, an above, or like let's say a good player and he wants to become great and he wants to, be a top player on this list. They get on there with $50 and then they play Gren, they play Regs, they play Josh, and then they lose it all, because that's very possible. Especially, I mean, it really is. And then they feel defeated, deflated, and then they just go, I'm done. I'm never coming back to the site again. And I think that's the biggest problem, is getting rinsed like that, and then it just discourages guys, which is kind of why we go back to why Rivals probably doesn't have a leaderboard and why everyone's a winner.
I like what Kessa said about 500, because I honestly think that if you put in 500 and played $10 money games, which is kind of like the minimum that people will play.
$5 for me, I would play.
Yeah, like even if you could, you'll get guys that'll play for $250, man. Like
oh my gosh,
there's guys like Cad would in July will play for $250.
Yes. So would Josh.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that if you went in and you're like, this is specifically because I want to become into the next echelon, by the end of that, if you are not able to become top 100 Hut Champs, let's say you've never gotten top 100 Hut Champs, by the end of that you will, because like inherently you will just pick up what other people are doing. You know what I mean? Like you'll be able to pick up what they're doing, and when you get beaten so many times by like the same kind of people or the same kind of moves, you'll go and practice it, or you'll like know what to look for. I feel like in the NHL games, because there's so little strategy, the strategies that are ironed out, everyone knows, and you see a lot. And then you're like, hey, I need to figure out how to do this, right? And I think that what Kessler said about the $500, it sounds ridiculous, but by the end of that, man, you are good. You will be good.
Because you'll make it last for a long time, right? It's not like you're going to play 50 games in a row. You're going to play 3 to 4. You're going to reflect on what you did, what you didn't. Maybe you record the games, you go back, you play some Hut Champs during the week, and then all of a sudden you implement that stuff. Maybe you win 10 out of 50 games. Who knows?
I'll say this.
I also
don't do it before you're in Division 1.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, preface, if you're going to play money games or even think about that, I don't want someone in Division 5 to be like, here, put $500 in. You probably will, because you don't have like you haven't grasped the concept of the game like in its totality just yet. If you can get to Division 1 in Hut, you're still a decent player at Hut, no matter what. Like people like joke about that, but if you can get to Division 1, you're in the top 1% of the game. And when you consider that 50,000 people play Hut, that's a very it's hard to get into Division 1. For a lot of people. So I think that if you can once you get into Division 1 in Hut and you can stay there, then consider that. But go ahead, Padre.
I was going to say too, play Versus, because here's the thing. We can all be 16-4, not all, but like if you're going to play on the site, you probably need to go at least 17-3 in champs. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, if you play Versus, think about what at the end of the year, what matters. Almost anybody that's a top 1,000 player can probably qualify for GWC to just qualify for the tournament. The big thing is getting to the next stage of the tournament, which is when you have to play with your team. That's when you can get onto this top 15 list. is you have to play with essentially versus players.
Yep.
So that's where I feel like a lot of these guys, if you look at all the names on the list, they all are good in versus too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I agree with that.
You don't see a lot of hut heroes on this list, as we would like to call them. You know what I mean? You're not seeing the game time squeaking on this list and stuff. No Slee's favorite stream sniper.
Let's talk a little bit about the history of NHL Esports. So, if you guys don't know, the Game World Championship came in. This will be the 6th year of the GWC, which is wild. Came in NHL 18, and it came out of nowhere too, because there was nothing, up until that point, and it was basically $100,000 prize pool tournament that has been run by the NHL every year, and it is kind of turned into. It's made Hockey Ultimate Team, at least for the top end, basically the life cycle of the game, which I think is good and bad. But before that, let's talk about what it was like before, because it was wild in its heyday. So we'll let Padre do it, because I think Kessel might boop. So give me your rundown of what it was like early on, like NHL 9 and 10.
So I'll go back to the old days with me and Kesso. We used to go at it back in the day. We were like rivals. Our teams were rivals.
I gotta find the clip of him at the Virgin Gaming thing. I'll see if I can find that, dude. It's wild.
Yeah, Kesso is at the Virgin. So Kesso was more. He was more into like the 1v1 stuff than I was in the beginning. And where I met Kesso was in ESHL, and ESHL at the time was always, in my opinion, bigger than 1v1. And the main tournament was in 09. The whole thing was to play at the EA Sports Studios against the PS3 team at the time. Wow. And all the best teams were on the 360, and it was the big deal. And it's so funny, like the tournament trophy is still there. To this day,
I've seen it in the.
And after that, they never did anything again. The one other thing I remember they did was they had him come to the NHL store in New York City. Am I right, Kesso? And Dream Killers won the best team, but that was it. And after that, it never did anything again. And it was really cool, because back in the day, there wasn't a lot of tournaments like there is now, where like we could all meet each other. Like I've met No Sleeves, I've met like different guys in the community through tournaments. You guys have met each other. That was like foreign. Back then it was like this, online people, you didn't really know anybody. So that was like the allure of it, was like, wow, I get to meet somebody possibly from my team. And now it's just all about money. And that's where like Virgin Gaming came along. And that's in Kesso. I mean, maybe you want to take it from there with Virgin Gaming. I played on there too, but you ran Virgin Gaming pretty hard back in the day.
Yeah, like I said, if any point I start booping, let me know. But always in the background was Gamer Saloon and World Gaming.
Yep.
And then NHL 12, Virgin, the company owned by Richard Branson, bought World Gaming, and they threw like insane amounts of money just at esports. So the first year NHL 12 for EA Sports titles, Madden, FIFA, and NHL, there's $1 million tournament in New York.
Crazy.
That you had to qualify through like an online ladder. The tournament was like, they're so poorly.
You're booping now.
You're booping.
You're good. I know you're gonna. I know you're gonna say, because I know you had to go up screen, down screen. You were playing for the coin flip. Talk about. I think you're good now, but talk about your coin flip where guys would have to practice going down screen. So like we play all year.
Yeah.
For people that don't know this, mostly everybody plays going up screen. So
always, yeah.
When I would go to my friend's house when I'd play, and they know I'm good at NHL, they're like, "Oh, we'll put Stewie on the down screen for 2 periods." I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm not that good down screen." They're like, "It's the same thing." I'm like, "No, it's not." Especially with the skill stick. Kesso, you can tell your story right now about how you got screwed kind of when you played out in Vegas.
Yeah, dude. Once you lose that coin flip and you have to go down screen. So like I practiced the whole year playing down screen, right? Like I would play money games only down screen. I wouldn't even go up screen. But it's not the same.
No.
It's just not. So like I lost in like the final 16 in Vegas. Guy had 5 shots, 4 goals. I still remember. Remember just being so angry, man. But it was best of 1.
That's tough.
Throughout. It's best of 1.
Especially
randomly seeded. Yeah.
It's crazy the amount of money back then, though. You know what I mean? Because like that's so much more than what it is now, even for the GWC. I think the one thing like about how the GWC has gone, and I think it has been so negatively impacted from COVID and just EA as a whole now because of the 4 separate consoles. I'm curious to see. I think this year will be its best ever in terms of just like how it ends up, and I'm really excited to see how it goes. And I always like the casual players. Like there's so many guys out there that maybe like don't watch Twitch, they don't watch YouTube, and they just play their buddies and they just get home and they just, you know, grind out a couple like Hut Champs games where they don't play. Dude, I guarantee there's so many guys that are just completely unknown that if they actually like put, you know, a good like month into it, would easily just come out of nowhere, you know? Like
yeah, Top Shelf Cookie. I remember being like, "Who's this Matty 10?" And he was just because we could all see the brackets for the first year of the GWC, and you know, some guys are getting some cakewalk runs, some guys are getting some, you know, tough runs, and I'm thinking, "Who's this Matty 10 guy?" Well, he makes the land the first year. You know, he ends up. I'll never forget this. Rick Chel was like, "I got slapped by this guy. He wasn't even that good or something." Well, little did he know the next year the guy's the world champion. It's just. And you kind of get your foot in the door, and you're kind of like, okay, like I see, you know, what this is. It's, you know, there's competitive players, and then he meets, you know, guys also like junior pens at the U.S. regional, John Wayne, and then he's like, okay, like so you guys play on this website, you guys play here. This is who I need to watch on Twitch, and they learn, and then the next year they prepare. Like Uninstall, I feel like is a good example of that. You know, last year he was mostly a streamer, get good in Hut Champs, and this year he put the pedal to the metal. And now look at him. He's winning tournaments. He's going deep in tournaments. You know, that kind of thing.
No, exactly. I think like I love the one thing that I do really like about what the GWC did was when they added it in. There's a big you know, debate of like to go like the full competitive route. It should be versus in that sense, just because it's all even. But I think that for like the engagement, there's just no one that plays versus anymore for obvious reasons because there's no team building aspect, things like that. It has to be Hut. I loved it when they included it in the game because that opened up like for thousands of more people because it's just in game. Like you can see where to sign up, and then you just play the leaderboard every week to qualify there. That was a huge big change for the GWC that I really liked when it went to Hut. And I'm assuming that it would stay the same again this year. Curious to see because there's cross matchmaking. I don't know how that's gonna play in. So there'll be a couple things that'll be interesting, but I think that it will be the best year of it. And I think that again, if you can get top 100 in Hut Champs, you know, even once this year, maybe not in the summertime, but like once this year, you should try just, you know, again, if you don't want to play money games, that's fine, but maybe just like hang around some of the bigger guys' streams. I think that one of the big things is like I've told all of these kids they need to be streaming because they have such an easy advantage because people want to either watch people that are like entertaining or that are really good at the game. Because Kessel, you touched on it, man. Like go and watch these guys play. You'll pick up on some of their habits, not just the goals they score, but like how they break out, who they're controlling in their own zone. Like those are the things you need to watch for.
Who they're using on their team. Kesso, you know this with your runs. When you get to 18-0, 17-0, your viewers shoot up because people want to see you either
fail,
make it to 20-0, or they want to see you fail and throw your controller through the wall, which I know you don't do that, but we know some streamers, Josh Fearless, you know, that will be Gronk spiking their controllers.
I will never forget. Before I knew really anyone, and I just met Kesso, his first run in the GWC, I got a picture after he got knocked out, and it was like the room where he was playing, and it was like, yo, Kesso, how'd your game go? Big foothole. Like, just right in the wall. Like
Kesso blamed it on Henry.
Mild-mannered, just the most mild-mannered guy, but dude, he lost the big ones, and it just went right through the wall. Yeah. That's one of my favorite Kesso memories. I wish I could find that picture, because it would just be so funny to, like, post whenever you get mad at the game.
Dude, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
That game, the first one where my foot went through the wall, I lost to vaporize. Listen. He took the leading goal with 2 seconds left. It bounced off a shin pad, then bounced off a helmet, and then it landed on his guy's stick. I was
man. I can't believe you lost a vape. That makes it way funnier. I didn't realize that.
Doesn't it?
Oh, man. I'm curious. So I've been doing some work with the Raptors 2K team, and obviously, they have, like, the gold standard of esports, and it's not 1v1, right? It's 6v6. I would love to see both in NHL because there's always such an argument. Like, if Sixers guys would be like, it should be Sixes, no 1v1. It's like, I would love to see just both because I think there's a landscape for both. But, man, it'll be interesting to see over the next coming years of, like, if it takes off and, like, because the 2K League is, obviously, they have much bigger backing because basketball is so much bigger than hockey.
That's what these kids need to realize in the
Yeah.
sixes. It's not because the game sucks or the game's this or the game's that. Like, people always say that kind of stuff. Like, this is why the game can't grow because the game's... No, it's because it's the sport of hockey.
Yep.
It's the fourth largest sports league. And you could even argue that UFC's coming up right behind it.
It's close.
Because people love UFC. There's probably more people in the North American landscape, now I'm talking about Canada, that know who Conor McGregor is than Conor McDavid. And it's not because, it's just the fact, like, it's what the money, where the money's at. Baseball or basketball and football will always be 1 and 2, and it is what it is, and that's where they get the money to be able to have the 2K league. And NHL probably won't have that. But the tournaments that they've been doing, these teams, and Sleaze, this with the engagement they get, that's probably the direction a lot of these teams are going, because you guys have seen, the sixes guys have seen, they went from 1v1, they tested it out, and then they went to sixes because they got way more engagement. Sponsors like it more.
The team-based events allowed to go multiple seasons. And for anyone that's looking to get into competitive sixes, not just 1v1, go to League Gaming. It is League Gaming will for always be like one of the most impressive things to me because of how well organized it is. Like once you find out about it, I feel like everyone that has played NHL finds LG and gets obsessed for at least a couple of seasons, and then it just like you're like, okay, that's enough, because it's like, dude, it's so serious. Like
what season are they on now?
Oh, I think it's gotta be in the 40s on Xbox, and I remember I got drafted in the first round on season 6 on PlayStation. And I would be willing to bet they're in.
I think me and Kesso were some of like the inaugural LG players, because if you remember, Kessler, you might remember this. LG went from LG, and then people went to VHL, which is Virtual Hockey League. And then I remember being like, we should go back to LG. The site is so much better. It's so much cleaner. You can go, track it through the game and everything. And Tris was doing such a good job at doing that. Because back at the very beginning in NHL 08, I know this is going way back, you used to use NHL teams and NHL players. So back then, everyone wanted to get the Ducks and the Senators, and you were player locked to like Danny Heatley and Alfredson and Spezza. It was crazy, and those were always the best teams. But now it's crazy what Tris has done, and like for just having that site as a hobby, it's pretty unbelievable. Like how awesome it is.
It's full rosters, guys. Rosters of 16 players. You have an owner and a GM. You have a salary, like, so there's a bid where you get your salary and like it goes against the cap. Everyone has a cap, and you can start in the CHL and you play out a couple seasons there, and then there's a draft to try and get into the NHL. It is absurd. You get 2 games or 3 games a week, out of the 8 that are there. So there's 3 lines or 9. And
don't you worry. There is plenty of drama to come with it, too, because you got a lot of owners and GMs that think they are real owners and GMs.
That's what usually it ends in.
That's what it usually ends in. I'll never forget, I had an owner, his name's Jay Odie, and he'd bring us into the locker room, he'd call it, in the party. Big Jay Odie. He'd bring us in the party, he'd be like, listen here, we're going to have to let you go. I'm like, what is this? Am I talking to Ken Holland here? Like, it was unbelievable. I was like, we're going to have to let you go. He's like, we traded you. I'm like, okay, see ya.
And you go join the other Discord? Like, oh, man.
It was crazy.
All right, boys. So we're in the second week now of September. There wasn't any confirmed dates, I don't believe, on the presentation trailer, and I believe the what was the other one? The game modes trailer. It's like, dude, it's going to be a weak year of features when they throw World of Chel, franchise mode, Be a Pro, like, all into one, like, trailer thing, and presentation gets, like, its own, like... It's going to be tough.
It's all going to fit into a Vine. That's how many features are added.
It goes right in. It's a 15-second TikTok now. That'll be it. I'll still find a way to make it a 10-minute video, I'll tell you what. No, but I'm excited, because at least we'll get some new things about 23. Me and Kessa are a little bit more harsher. I think it's because we've been playing the game for a really long time, and I'm sure Padre doesn't always have the happiest opinion. We'll pretend to be optimistic for you guys so that we're always not so down. But we are pretty critical. I think that we have to hold EA to a higher standard at some point. But yeah, the presentation thing, I will say, for the guys that grind offline, and I do a franchise mode series every year, and I actually do enjoy franchise mode still, because it was like how I played the game, when I was a kid, like until like 08 really, when online started. They're adding in a lot of new stuff that makes it a little bit more immersive, so I think for that, there's a lot of offline players still, so that's going to be fun. I don't know what they're going to show in that game modes one, though, dude. I have, like... Man, they're gonna have that PR ready, I'm sure, bro, because it is gonna be. I don't know. I have no idea what they're gonna show in that. So that'll be interesting.
Oh, no.
And we're working in like ending the pod here a little bit, but we're working on getting it on Spotify and Apple and all this stuff.
Yeah,
like,
guys. As you listen to this one, it should be up on Spotify. If it's not, it will be by next week. We had a little bit of hiccup getting the audio version of that. So if anyone watching the video, appreciate that. But you should be able to go back to listening to an Apple Pod or Spotify. We'll get all that sorted out. And make sure that you guys listen to our actual hockey podcast that comes out on Thursdays. We've done 2 now. The Central Division preview and the Pacific Division preview. And we're doing the Metro Division this week. So make sure you pay attention to that one if you're listening to this. It'll be out on Thursday. Really excited about that. And we will have some big guests that blow me away. Coming into as we get into the earlier launch of NHL October. So I'm really excited for that, guys. So anything else you guys want to add?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah, right, dude, boys. I'm good.
All right, good little chat, fellas. So thank you guys for listening or watching, and make sure you follow down below. There are Kesso and Padre's Twitters are down there, so make sure that you guys check them out as well. And we'll see you next week, guys. Peace out.